Good afternoon, everyone. It's just gone 4 o'clock, so we'll start today's meeting. You're all very welcome on Pancake Tuesday on a lovely spring day. So we're going to hand over to the Chief Executive to take the roll call. John.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. To all members of the Governance and Strategic Planning Committee, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the committee, which will be a hybrid meeting to be conducted remotely via WebEx and physically here in the Council Chamber in the Guildhall today, Tuesday the 1st of March at 4 o'clock. Alderman Breslin.
Here, John.
Alderman Devaney.
Here.
Alderman McClintock.
Here, John.
Alderman McCready. Councillor John Boyle. Councillor Donnelly.
Here.
Councillor Doyle. Councillor Duffy.
And Shaw.
Councillor Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Fleming. Councillor Heaney.
Shaw, John.
Councillor McHugh.
And Shaw, John.
Councillor Mooney.
Here.
And Councillor Riley. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Okay, thank you, John, for that. Members, item 3 on the agenda is the broadcasting announcement, so I'll just read this out. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This webcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. If you are seated in the lower part of the public seating area, it is possible that the recording cameras may capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. People just have the mics off if you're not speaking just at the moment. Thank you. Item 4, folks, is declarations of members' interests. Any declarations? Take them now, or as the meeting arises. And I'm not seeing anyone indicating wishing to come in for declaration of members' interest. That leads us on to item 5, which is the deputation, and that's to receive Mr. Steve Blockwell, Head of Investment Management, and Dr. Gary Curran, Head of Metering and Billing for Northern Ireland Water, to go through their council's, to inform the council of the NI Water's investment programme for the council area for 2021 to 2022 through to 2026-2027. So I'm going to hand over to both gentlemen. You're very welcome along to today's committee. So if you just want to go through your presentation, and then I'll open it up for questions afterwards. Thank you. Just checking if we have sound for our deputation. Who's trying to go first? Is it Gary? Or is it...
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yep, that's perfect. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was just explaining there. Steve, oh, he's back on.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. Sorry about that, folks. I'll let you stand down, Gary. There.
Okay. So, over.
Sorry. So we're ready to present. Is that right? Yep.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
I'll just share my screen. Sorry about the delay there. Okay. Okay. Is that coming through the presentation?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, you can see that. Okay, I'll just put it in. Okay. Oops, sorry. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Well, good afternoon. Thanks very much to the council for inviting NI Water to present this afternoon. I'm Stephen Blockwell. I'm the investment manager in NI Water, and I'm joined tonight by Gary Curran, who's head of metering and billing in our operations directorate. I suppose this evening, or this afternoon rather, we want to share with you the utility regulator's final determination for PC21, or Price Control 2021 to 2027, what it means in terms of wastewater and water investment, especially in the Derry City and Strabane District Council area. And we also want to cover the approach we're taking in relation to facilitating development through NI Water's planning teams and our statutory planning responses, so that we're fair and consistent across the whole of Northern Ireland. But But what I want to do first really is just to discuss, I suppose, or just cover the size and scale of the operations that we undertake at NI Water. We manage and operate on a daily basis, and we provide an average of about 600 million litres of treated drinking water every day, which is pumped over to 893,000 households and businesses over about 27,000 kilometres of water main pipes. And then we use the water, of course, and then it comes back on the wastewater side, and we collect about 368 million litres per day via 16,000 kilometre network of sewers. And this is conveyed by gravity or by using our 1,300 wastewater pumping stations to over 1,000 wastewater treatment works. Okay. Every part of our infrastructure network, whether it's a treatment works or a pump or a pipe, has a finite capacity. And most of NI Water's assets are a legacy from decades ago. So much of the capacity that can be handled today is based on these legacy assets. So that's why it's important to remember that we have network overflows or relief valves, which prevent sewage backing up during heavy rainfall events and flooding people's homes, businesses, schools, etc. So we're a large operation, and if you compare, I suppose, our networks in relation to the road network has got about 26,000 kilometres. Okay. So really want to have a call out as well to all the essential workers who've helped through the pandemic, but also just to flag that you may not be aware, but there are essential workers at NI Water. Our frontline workers are in this category because we supply vast quantities, as I mentioned, of high quality drinking water, and that's for hand washing, which has been a leading weapon used against the COVID-19 virus. And to be successful in this task, we carried these operations out with extensive safety processes, and these are put in place to ensure consistent delivery of key water and wastewater services and protect, of course, our staff during that very difficult time. When I last presented to the Council on the 11th of November in 2020, I set out in quite a lot of detail NI Water's regulatory cycle and its business planning process. We have a 6-year cycle, and that's aligned to NI Water, or the NI Executive, Social and Environmental Guidance document, and its objectives for water and sewage services over a 6-year period. So also cover the extensive engagement that we undertake with our regulators for prioritising investments within the business plan. And I'm pleased to say the business plan was scrutinised by the Utility Regulator. They published their final determination on the 13th of May, 2021, and the company accepted what was a challenging determination on the 6th of July. And then our focus as a business then moved immediately to getting funding for the final determination. I suppose I'm pleased to say that at least in the first year of PC21, we have had full funding for our plan. Now, the Utility Regulator, when it reviewed our plan, recognised our efficiency and also introduced new efficiency challenges. And we have, I suppose, an operating challenge of 15.4 million to reduce our annual costs. And that's on an overall OPEX budget of 1.3 billion. And on the capital side, he recognised, again, the work we're doing, but also put an efficiency of 117 million on approximately 2.2 billion pound capital program. So these are it's a huge program to deliver over 6 years. Just to give you a flavour really of the scale of it in relation to where we were with our last price control. We put this slide together. So as I say, we're going to invest about 2.2 billion in year one. Our capex that we've received about 220 million, and you can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it does ramp up significantly up to about 460 million in year 5. And if you just look at the red line, which is our run rate, if you like, in PC15, which was roughly 150 million a year. It did go up and down a little bit, but on average 150 million. So you can see this is a huge jump up in investment, which we need, and we are getting the resources to deliver that at the moment. I'm pleased to say. So it's a 2.2 billion investment, and it's split across several service areas. Sewage provision is huge, it's big. There's $1 billion there. And as you would have probably gathered from previous presentations, this is to address, I suppose, the underinvestment on the wastewater side of the business. We have our maintenance programs, planned and reactive. That is to keep everything in order, keep the roof on the house, if you like. And that's 440 million over the 6 years. 168 million for water provision, all that clean, safe drinking water that we provide. Running a huge program has its overhead costs as well. And also we can't stand still. We have to manage for the future, and we have a management in general program there of 187 million. Okay, so that sort of sets out on a page really the sort of the scale of the investment. So we've got, I suppose, a few challenges, as everyone else has as well. Some of them will be all too familiar now, and unfortunately, energy costs have affected everyone, and we're the largest electricity user in Northern Ireland. We have no ability to build up cash reserves or savings, if you like, for a rainy day. And we're not allowed to borrow outside of our resource DEL allocation that we get from the department, or ultimately from the executive. And therefore, we have to go back to the department and the executive to have extra funding to cover these huge increases in electricity costs. And we were successful in the January monitoring round. Otherwise, we were looking at quite extreme measures, which could include switching off all our wastewater pumps, all our wastewater treatment works, and even then we wouldn't make sufficient savings to cover the millions and millions of pounds increase in electricity and gas costs. Development constraints, as we know, these are unwelcome, and this is a challenge that we're hoping to rise to with our strategic program of investment over the next 6 years. And you'll hear from Gary some other initiatives that we're putting in place as well to work with closely with developers during this difficult time. Ultimately, everything relies on funding, and we would like to see continued support for our PC21 program over the next 6 years. And then there's a lot more uncertainty. We're hoping to get the three-year budget through, but that may not be the case, or there's a few question marks over that. Climate change, as everyone remembers, the COP conference. We're gearing up for the climate change emergency. We've got some good initiatives, such as looking at the splitting of water into hydrogen and oxygen using electrolyzers, using energy from wind and from solar, from alternative sources, particularly wind at night. So that's energy that's low cost. You split water, and you're able to store all that green hydrogen. That's your energy, of course, and that can be used, to power, buses, cars, our fleet, maybe even broader, depending on where we go. That's a potential pathfinder project as we try and get on our journey. I suppose as a country and as a world, if you like, onto net to achieve net zero. So that's something that we're exploring as well. We've also got a program to plant 1 million trees. So we're making some moves in that space, and that will probably influence significantly our next price control period. So moving on to, I suppose, to the local development plan for Derry City and Strabane District Council. We know that you're familiar with your vision for 2032, and we've been working with your planning teams. We're aware of the need to provide your need, if you like, to put in 9,000 new quality homes by 2032, and also all that creation of new jobs, 15,000 new jobs as well by 2032. So we're working closely with the planners as we go through, and we're supporting these plans and trying to align them as best we can with our investment through PC21. Here you can see really an overview of the water services that we're planning to deliver based on adequate funding being provided over the next 6 years. You can see there a variety of schemes. There's large trunk main schemes, particularly the Core Hill Carmody Strabane strategic link, over 18 million. You have quite a few reservoir bypass smaller schemes as well. We have a large trunk main for Castletown Strabane. There are lots of, I suppose, there's some treatability improvements at Carmody, and there's a large treatability project which I'll show on the next slide, which is actually now gone through all its pilot work stage, etc., and is actually underway for delivery, and that's the Derg water treatment works. So that represents a 12 million pound investment and to upgrade the works. And as you know, with the Derg and the Strool, quite difficult water courses to extract and the raw water from and purify it so that it's suitable for putting into supply. So a massive investment going on there, and that will improve I suppose, the reliability and water quality of that works and bring it bang up to date. If we look at the wastewater, we have an investment of 26 million that we'll put in over the next 6 years. We're targeting about 4 wastewater pumping stations and a significant investment in the Strathford siphons there. You can see over 10.5 million, and a total investment of 26 million over the next 6 years is planned. And here we have a few I suppose illustrations really of the scale of the Strathford works. The last time this was done was in 1971, or around about the early 1970s. So we're now looking to replace those twin 300 millimeter pipes, and we'll lay a new 600 mil pipe across, and that's a critical connection across the east and the west banks. And those the sewage there that's conveyed will move to be treated at the Cornwall treatment works. So that's a large project that's coming to the council area. Okay. Another initiative that's been launched by the Minister, Nicola Mallon, in 2021 is the Strategic Drainage Infrastructure Plan for Derry. We're working closely with the department to support that plan, and it is really about protecting the environment, I suppose, and enhancing the services provided and enabling, I suppose, growth. And we also, as part of this, working with the department, want to deliver, I suppose, greener solutions, and we're trying to do that across Northern Ireland as well. But particularly, I think it's a good match with Derry's local development plan as well, where they're very focused on blue and green infrastructure. You still, of course, have to have some hard engineering. You can't purely go one way, but we're trying to get that integrated solution mix, and that also helps everyone on the journey, the climate change challenges. Okay. So I'm now going to hand over to Gary. Gary, are you able to talk
Yes.
slides on development constraints? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Thank you. I'll take the council through some slides here, just specifically around development constraints. One of the teams that works for me is our developer services team, and they are very much front and center in terms of working along with developers and planners to assist new development opportunities. As Steve has alluded to, there is significant underinvestment, particularly in the wastewater systems, that has resulted in constraints within our infrastructure, primarily our networks, but also some of our treatment capacity on the wastewater side. It will need sustained development or investment over the next 15 or 20 years to resolve. So it's not a quick win, and even if we get all of the funding that we are seeking, it will still take quite a number of years for us to work our way out of this. So in the interim, we are committed to maximising the capacity of our available infrastructure where possible. And we have a number of routes to this that I'll take you through. But essentially, one of our asks here is for early engagement via the pre-development inquiry process, so that both sides, the developers and my developer services team, get an early heads up of what's happening. We'll engage through your department, your planning department, with robust planning responses with conditions where necessary. And we're going to utilise, as I'll explain later, developer-led and finance solutions to hopefully find some way through the constraints, noting that the executive ultimately sets the level of investment for Northern Ireland Water. Okay, Steve. So how are we approaching this? Steve really, I think, has taken you through there the sort of the strategic level route and the overall investment that we're seeking to update our networks and treatment works over the next 6 years. And there's a plan to go for the subsequent 6-year period after that as well. So very much we're seeking substantial investment at a strategic level to try and address this. What I'm looking at is in the interim period at a tactical level, really, where we're looking to design and construct very much a developer-led and finance solution on a bespoke site-by-site basis. So developers approach us, we look at the problems, we come up with a potential range of options where it's appropriate, and work with the developer to get that up and running to facilitate development at that tactical site-by-site basis. To do this, we've put in place a completely new team, our development constraints team, with a lot of resource in there. There's robust processes and procedures to control how we engage with developers on an equitable basis to ensure consistency across that process. One of the key things is our responses to planning and how we deal with that. Our responses are more robust, but we're making a lot more use of conditions in our planning responses. We've also undertake a lot of direct engagement with developers, their agents and designers. So we're talking to them on a continual basis, very much in an iterative process to find a way through this with that solutions engineering team. And we have also, just to help in that communication process, we've just launched a new web page with a lot more information on it to help guide people through, particularly those who are maybe coming to us for the first time. But as I said earlier on, one of the key actions and our asks of anyone wishing to look at development opportunities is engage with us early and open up that two-way dialogue. And it helps just ease the process, helps to get early foresight of what the problems are and what potential solutions we may have. Okay, Steve. So this is the new web page that I alluded to there, and you'll see the address at the bottom. There's a lot more information. Hopefully you'll find it's a lot easier to navigate through with a lot of our application forms and processes, particularly for that pre-development team, are located on that web page there as well. Okay, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Guy. Yeah, thanks very much. So I suppose last couple of slides now, really. So this really is just to share, with the council, really the campaigns and the education provision that we're able to provide. And just to draw your attention, there's the customer care register that we provide to give extra support to people that need that extra help, whether it's the elderly or the infirm, or ill, and so they can go on a special register and they can contact us, and if there are issues with the water network or sewage network, etc., then they will get priority and get help. So I would encourage you to advertise that register. So it's on our website, a web link there. Other campaigns that you may well have heard over the years are the Bag It and Bin It campaign, to make sure that we just flush pee-poo and paper down the loo, so that we don't put other products down there which can clog up, and I suppose combined with fat, you get fatbergs and causes flooding. That is needless. You don't need to have that. We just treat the toilet is just the toilet. The bin is the place for everything else. We're also, I suppose, getting the message out there on water efficiency. We visit the schools and educate them. We visited 43 schools in the Derry City and Strabane District Council area, and also we've put 21 water butts in the schools as well. And that's just over the last year. And we've also got the Refillution campaign, where we're encouraging water refill sites, and everyone's got a water bottle these days, so better than buying the ones in the shops, and it's great tasting stuff too. So just I suppose a snapshot there of a few campaigns and the education provision that we provide with the water bus. If you want to reach us, we've got numerous channels. For elected representatives, there you have the 24/7 lines. That's the most efficient way to get your inquiries in or to follow things up. So those are all logged, and then they go out to the right people in the business. We've got email, website, Twitter, Facebook. There's so many different channels these days, and there's a 24 7 water line as well for the public use, and you've got the hashtag delivering what matters. So I suppose just to summarise then, so I suppose you started the presentation really there, giving the details of the PC21, the investment. That's helping us to start to overcome the underinvestment in the wastewater system. That results in development constraints, to say, which are unwelcome. It is going to be a bit of a journey, but we're also committed to maximising the infrastructure we have, and that, as Gary mentioned, is through early engagement via pre-development inquiries, and we're also giving robust planning responses with conditions where necessary, and trying to work with developers, and there may well be developer-led solutions, but there will be budgetary implications, of course, for those. But critical to us is the provision of adequate funding by the executive for the PC21 period. So we have an ambitious plan. We've got it's in place to deliver. We've got the necessary skills, so we just need to be adequately funded. And I think I'll just leave it there. We're happy to take questions. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Steve and Gary, for talking us through that, and also for sending through the document in advance for members to look through. I have a number of indicated speakers. I'll open it up to the floor now for questions. The first indicated speaker in the chat box was Councillor Heaney, and then Alderman McClintock here in the chamber. Go ahead, Councillor Heaney.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Stephen and Gary for the presentation. I suppose I know from my own time in the Department of Infrastructure that there's a huge issue here of a massive requirement around the network and what needs to be done in terms of development and the huge cost attached to that. And I think you have costed it yourselves at 2.2 billion over 6 years is required to do this. And some obviously from the executive, but the onus is in your presentation is on developer-led funding also. And I'm all in favour of the private sector being brought in and paying for some of these critical infrastructure issues as ultimately their developments are benefiting from them. And it's just a wee bit of concern in relation to that strategy. If there is no enforcement issues in the past, that hasn't the developer side or the private sector side hasn't always delivered what is required or to the standard that's required. And do you have what teeth have either NI Water or the department have to actually ensure that any contributions from the developers is appropriate and of the appropriate standard? So appreciate it if you could give me some clarity on that, please. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Heaney. I maybe take this one, Steve.
Yeah.
Gary,
so
sorry, Gary, just before you do, if you don't mind, I'll take a number of questions from the floor
right.
first, and then just come back to just to keep the meeting flowing, if that's okay.
Okay.
Alderman McClintock, Hillary, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Stephen and Gary, for the presentation. I found it very interesting. And I suppose my question really is almost the same lines as Councillor Heaney there before me. I'm looking at the table or the graphic in front of us about the £2.2 billion of critical capital investment required. And I suppose my question really is that just to keep us standing still, or how far does that future-proof us? And I do welcome the fact that of the developer-led proposals, those of us who are on the planning committee are very aware of the issues. We have an ambitious housing, we've ambitious housing wish list, really, and we know the problems whenever the infrastructure is not there. So I do welcome the developer-led contributions. But just does that 2.2 billion, is that just to stand still, or is that actually future investment? And I suppose how much of any of it is actually available or promised at this particular time? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Alderman McClintock. And then the final indicated speaker for this first section of questions is Alderman Devaney. Go ahead, Morris.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And can I say a warm welcome to Gary and Stephen here for the presentation. My question and around that, and I've listened hardly to the last two speakers, and I would agree with everything that they have asked. But how far are we off crisis mode here? Because we've had Northern Ireland Water in before, and we have seen graphs in around the sewage. the issues, the red graphs that we've seen, under serious pressure in Strabane and in London area, across the whole council area. I'm just wondering how long can we go before we're in crisis mode? And I think Alderman McClintock asked the pertinent question I was going to ask, is this a standstill, or, is this just keeping ticking over, or is this new investment in the infrastructure? And look, we all espouse to good quality water. Sometimes we as representative have issues. I had issues in around the Cullion area there for 6-7 months, but seem to be alleviated now, and I welcome it. But I do worry about the sewage treatment and around that there, because I know people now who are having for planning applications to renovate their houses or upgrade houses or stuff like that there, and they're now getting information from NI Water regarding the sewage from that property out. And as we espouse to, we have thousands of houses sitting in the planning application process through ready to be built at the moment, and as we move into city deal, our aspirations for that is thousands of more new homes. And I do worry that we are going to hit a crisis at some stage. But thanks for the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Maurice, for that. Back to yourselves, Gary and Stephen, if you want to take those questions.
Okay. You want me to go, Steve? Yeah.
We go with the first one then. Yeah, from Councillor.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, it was a question from Councillor Heaney. In terms of sort of enforcement of developers and so on, we have a lot of additional resource also going into our adoptions process, and that's where we will look at what the developer was supposed to provide in terms of infrastructure around the site for both the clean water and the dirty water infrastructure. We have additional clerk of works going around and looking at those. And we've just completed a sort of purge of historic sites to make sure that they're up to date and adopted. And we're starting to see the outworkings of this actually in house sales and the legal process. A lot more solicitors now, I think, are much more aware of the requirements of making sure that the infrastructure on sites has been adopted by NI Water, and we're getting a lot more requests back for that information. So I think generally there has been quite a positive move there in terms of making sure the quality of the work is up to a standard and that it has been appropriately adopted by NI Water. In terms of enforcement, we do request developers to provide us with a bond. If the developer goes bust or whatever, we can use that bond if it is of the correct, up to a correct amount to allow us to undertake the work. If it's not up to the required levels, then unfortunately we will not be able to undertake that work to bring it up to appropriate standard. But we're starting to see less of these sites requiring enforcement now. I think it was probably an outworking of the sort of boom and bust period when a number of developers went bankrupt and we had to go down the route of enforcement. But definitely on the books now, there's a lot fewer sites that we're having to look at that enforcement process. In terms of the solutions engineering bit and that developer-led infrastructure, yes, when we get to the point of that new infrastructure going in, constructed and so on by the developer, we have clerk of works who will go out and check on the quality of work, making sure it's coming up to standard. We'll undertake CCTV surveys, for example, of sewers and so on to make sure that it is appropriate. So I'm much more comfortable now in terms of the quality of the infrastructure that could be put in place by developers. The second question, Steve, in terms of the investment.
Yeah, I'll take that then. Yeah. That's fine. Well, it's linked to the second and the third, I think. So there's a £2.2 billion plan, and £1 billion is to invest in the wastewater system across the whole Northern Ireland. And just to give you an indication, you're talking about, are we future-proofing? Well, There are about 100 areas at the moment with capacity constraints. We're going to invest in, if we're funded, fully funded, 49 treatment works. And over the next 6 years, we also expect possibly another 30 to come on in terms of capacity issues. So we're starting to get after it, but it will be multiple price controls. And I think I made the point, we're talking, 15, 20 years, because they are big infrastructure projects. They do take time to plan and deliver, and there's no, magic bullet. So we're starting to get after the issue. Future proofing, just in general, we design, with a 25-year horizon. So that's all part of I suppose, the standard engineering approach. In terms of the networks, we are doing a lot of modeling, of network modeling, computer modeling. They do tend to identify more issues, but we will need those models as well to identify the solutions. And what we're trying to do is to work with councils all over the country here and trying to keep things like rainwater out, keep out the stormwater. And if you do that, you can create a bit of extra capacity or maximize the capacity to serve developments. And Gary's team are doing some sterling efforts. They're trying to identify opportunities, whether we do it as a company or we work with developers and try and take out the stormwater and create that extra, we call it hydraulic capacity in the network. But it is a battle that will take, there will be quite a few price controls before we sort of win the war. In terms of investment, say we've got year one, the PC21 was fully funded. There's less certainty now. We were hoping there would be a 3-year budget that would come forward, which is brilliant for a large company like us, because we can work very closely with our supply chain and maximize what can be delivered, because we've got that certainty. If you haven't got that certainty, you don't know what you're going to get next year or the year after or the year after that. That's not good for our sort of business. Not good for any business, if I'm quite blunt. So there's a lot to do, and we're doing as best we can to move forward and to upgrade. Councillor Devaney talked about a crisis point. Well, there are big issues like with the siphons in Derry, which we're working. There's a £10 million investment going through there. There's a large base maintenance project for the Culmore Works and an appraisal study as well to give more information on how that works is operating. We do find issues as the more we delve half the time. But we're trying to get ahead of the game. We're working with developers, exploring all the options, taking the storm out. We stand over extant planning applications that are in the system. There's also another option that we don't favour, which we haven't really mentioned, is the private wastewater treatment works. That's not an option that we favour or NIEA, but that is an option that can be open to developers. But that is often a very difficult route because you have to obtain regulatory consent to discharge into rivers. So there are a range of tools and approaches. And, I suppose our point in the presentation is there are strategic endeavours that we're taking forward with evidence-based business plans. So we've got 2.2 billion this time. There'll be another maybe 2-3 billion. Imagine the next price control, and there'll be another one after that at least. That's our estimates, and we've also got climate change coming in as well on top of that. So there are big challenges, but like I say, we have a plan. We're starting to get after it, but there's no really quick win to get after these big engineering solutions. I don't know, Gary, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think that's fairly comprehensive, Steve.
Okay, thank you for that, gentlemen. Any other indicated speakers, or are those that ask questions content with the answers they've received? I'm not seeing anybody else looking to come in on the chat box or in the room here. So Steve and Gary, thank you very much. That was very useful. And as I said, it was very useful to have it presented to us in advance for us to read through. Just as chair, I value the points he made in relation to the last slide in terms of how to get in contact with you 24/7. If there are issues that need attention, it is very useful to have the range of different contact methods that you displayed on the screen, and I know I've used that myself on different occasions. So I do think that is something that's valued by elected members. And I also had the pleasure of a tour of the facility and the water side up at Gelvin Grange in the water side recently as well, back before the pandemic. But nonetheless, it was great to see the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes in many senses, and it is valuable, the work that yourself and your colleagues in NI Water do for the people of the city and district. So thank you very much. Unless there's anything else you want to add, folks, we'll move on to the next item. And Steve and Gary, you're very welcome to stay on and enjoy the rest of the meeting. But if you do, can you log out of this WebEx portal and view the rest of the meeting on YouTube? So we'll let IT take us out of the WebEx portal now, and then we'll move on to the next item. Thank you.
Okay, well,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, members, we'll move on to item 6, which is chairperson's business. Just 2 items of chairperson's business to raise with people today. First of all, a sad occasion just to mark the death of Bridget Hume, who passed away earlier today. Bridget is survived by her husband, Paddy, and Bridget was the mother of Paul, Brenda, Fiona, Ursula, Una and Shauna, both Brenda and Shauna having had time in the chamber here as elected members, and of course Brenda served as mayor of the city. So I would ask that in due course that the mayor reaches out and sends a letter of condolence to Paddy and the Hume family on the death of Bridget earlier today. In relation to the second item of chairperson's business, is just to alert members, many of you will have already perhaps seen it online, that there is a public Real Ambition event taking place, a webinar on Monday, and members are encouraged to attend that. There'll be a presentation both by the Minister for Infrastructure in the executive, our party colleague Nicola Mallon, and also Eamon Ryan from the Irish Government will also be providing a contribution as well. So it's an opportunity for all those that are interested in Rail to join that meeting and to hear how the council, along with others, are working to deliver real expansion for the citizens of the Northwest. Members, moving on to item 7 on the agenda is the matters arising from the open minutes of Governance and Strategic Planning Committee held on the 1st of February. I'll just take those for accuracy. In the first instance, pages 21 to 44. If I can have a proposer for accuracy, please. Councillor Boyle. Okay, thank you, Alderman Besant, and then Councillor Boyle in the chamber here, happy to second. And then open them up for matters arising. Any members with matters arising? Not seeing any indicated speakers coming in on the chat box or in the chamber, so I'll take those as agreed. Members, item 8 then is the Q3 financial outturn. I'm going to hand over to officers for this item. Go ahead, Alfie.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this report is for you to consider and approve our 9-month financial outturn position. So members, obviously a detailed report, but as a high-level summary, despite the challenges of the pandemic which continue, and that has obviously caused very significant variances in our budgets, both positive and negative, this is a positive report. On the one hand, our budgets are overspent by about 2.36 million. And on the other hand, government support and prudent financial planning has totally mitigated that loss and moved us into a very small surplus position. So members, it's important that we look at those two components separately, because ultimately government support will cease and reserves will deplete, whilst obviously our council services need to continue. So we need to understand the ongoing challenges that relate to our services. So firstly, members, looking at the issues both positive and negative in relation to the overspend element, there's a detailed variance report provided in Appendix 1 for you, with a summary in section 3.1 of the report, and I'll just pick out the more significant issues within that. So in terms of positives, probably 3 main positives. Firstly, we're realising savings across a lot of our support services, and environmental health, mainly due to premises savings, facilities not operating at full capacity, some vacant posts, and also grant funding that was secured for some of our posts within environmental health and some overhead savings. Secondly, members' planning and building control income continues to be well ahead of budget. In combination, 205k year to date. Certainly something which we wouldn't have anticipated at the outset of the pandemic, but that's very positive indeed. And finally, members, in relation to our income at this point of the year, LPS are currently forecasting a small positive settlement in that regard. That hasn't been credited or absorbed within our accounts at this point, given the extreme uncertainty around the rates income at present. The particular issues in that regard are the backlog of debt write-off and land and property services, as well as the continued substantial appeals against our non-domestic rate base, with over 20% of the list currently under appeal. So in terms of the negative issues, we continue to lose significant income from many of our services. The key areas in that regard are leisure, 821k, and off-street car parking, 181k. The environment section faces significant challenge as a result of staffing pressures and refuse collection and street cleansing, as well as additional fees for the waste transfer station as the pandemic continues. We've also incurred significant unbudgeted costs and planning as a relation to judicial review issues. Obviously, we didn't get any budget for those type of costs when the function was transferred. We're continuing to incur exceptional costs as a result of the pandemic. At this point, 676k in total year to date. That's mainly security costs, recycling centres, communication costs, facility reopening costs, IT equipment, and health and safety costs. We have a shortfall in rate support grant, which has obviously been mitigated through the funding allocated last year, and we have had to carry forward 450k in our district fund following the recent rates process to ensure that our fund remains within the recommended levels by DFC. So members, when we take those positive and negative issues, thankfully they have been fully mitigated by the funding we've been provided with by government, and the details of that and all the measures are set out in table 3.3 of the report. They total 2.54 million. They include furlough claims. Obviously those only were for the first quarter of the year. They include financial loss funding from Department for Communities, DERA waste management funding, as well as the additional monies we got from Department for Communities last year to offset this year's rate support grant cut. So finally, members, moving forward, there are a lot of financial challenges there which are continuing, and positively at this point we're expecting confirmation from Department for Communities in the next couple of weeks of further funding for financial losses as we go into next financial year. That's something we weren't anticipating up to this point, but it's very positive. So essentially that puts us in a position where those challenges which we're experiencing can continue to be mitigated up to 31st of March 23. Beyond that, you'll be aware that we do have a COVID reserve created. This provides us with further contingency, not only in the next year, members, but beyond, because the key issues that we face even, beyond next year is, I suppose, restoration of our income levels back to pre-COVID levels, particularly in leisure. And if we can't achieve that, that'll be a major recurrent budgetary pressure for us going forward. We also, members, as highlighted in the rates process, should we not need that funding, we obviously have very massive expectations in terms of capital projects which we need to advance on top of those which we're already advancing. So the final point, members, you'll be aware that we're anticipating an imminent additional rate support grant allocation this month. Our share of that will be 1.86 million. Obviously very welcome, but as highlighted during the rates process, it's non-recurrent, and the proposal that we discussed as part of the rates process was that those monies would be ring-fenced in the first instance to mitigate should there be any potential cut. We don't know what the grant will be for next year at this point as yet, and again, should that not be required, we have massive pressures we can put those money towards in our capital programme and other issues. So members, that's the report, and it's recommended that you approve our position at Q3, and happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Alfie, for talking us through that. Indicate a speaker in the chat box. Councillor Duffy, go ahead, Sandra.
Sorry, had difficulty unmuting there, but thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alfie, for that really detailed report. As usual, I don't really have a question, just more sort of some comments around it. To start with, I want to put on record our thanks for all the support that we have got from the executive, and particularly, I suppose, from DFC, as it has allowed us to be in this positive position at this juncture. We have been looking now over the last wee while of moving out of the pandemic, and over recent months, I suppose we have been looking at the pressure it has put on us. But hopefully we are coming out of that, and we will see those pressures ease. But I suppose there is still some uncertainty around it, as we just don't know if there's another variant around the corner. So I suppose we do still have to be prudent around those issues. I just want to comment as well around the rates process. That was a particularly difficult rates process, particularly in light of the global cost of living crisis that everybody has been facing and have been finding great difficulty with. So I think that, Alfie, some of the work that you have done around that allowed us to be prudent and allowed us to protect jobs and services, and have that wee bit of hope around our capital programme, without putting too much pressure on our citizens. So I think that needs to be acknowledged as well. I suppose it's good to hear there as well that there is still positive steps coming out of DFC, and with money still on the table and still coming forward, which will greatly help us going forward. The rate support grant, absolutely welcome that, but we do still have a lot of uncertainty, particularly as we were hoping for a 3-year budget, which would give us that wee bit more of clarity around where we were going and what money would be allocated to not just us, but health and other departments as well. But unfortunately, we don't have that certainty at the minute. So, Alfie, I just want to put on record again our thanks to you and the team for the work that you do around this, because we know it's not easy. It is a difficult task, balancing the books and balancing all of our priorities around what we want to be spending the money on. So no, I appreciate that, and I always do appreciate the conversations that I have with you that allow me to have that wee bit more clarity around it. So just put on record our party's thanks to you, Alfie.
Okay, thanks for that, Sandra. Councillor Farrell, Rory, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Alfie, for the report. I'm not sure if Councillor Duffy proposed that, but I'm happy to second. So I'll keep it short and sweet. I know that our half-year financial outturn, we were an 800k overspend, and now as we reach the third quarter, it's moved to 2.3 million. But thankfully, due to prudent financial planning and plenty of government support, we're able to mitigate against those losses. So we're in a decent financial position, and that's to be celebrated. So I just want to pass on our thanks to Alfie and the team for keeping us on the black, and thanks very much.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Farrell. I'm not seeing any other indicated speakers, so happy to take that item as approved, and move on then to item 9, which is the consultation on the draft revised inclusive strategic growth plan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to brief the committee on the review of the strategic growth plan, and to outline that it is currently out for consultation, and to seek the committee's endorsement of the approach to the strategic growth partnership has adopted to date. As a means of background, Chair, you'll be aware that the legislation associated with local community planning, specifically Part 10 of the Local Government Act, puts a legislative duty on us to undertake a review of the community plan. And what it says specifically is that a review must be completed before the 4th anniversary of the date in which the community plan was published. There was updated guidance issued by the Department for Communities in March 21, which advised that we needed to do a formal review of the community plan by April 2022. So in February 2020, the Strategic Growth Partnership agreed its approach to how they would undertake this review, and they agreed that they would focus on 3 broad elements: the governance and the partnership structures, the actions within the plan, and also the use of data. So over the last year, there's been a significant degree of consultation and engagement with key stakeholders and citizens to sort of just get their feedback on the plan as it sits at this current point in time to inform the review. So we've undertaken over 300 engagements. We've done one-to-ones with community planning partners. We've engaged with outcome delivery partnerships, the Equality and Scrutiny Group, the Rural Issues Symposium, among many others. We've launched 2 online surveys. We did a qualitative survey seeking views from citizens on the partnership, the actions and the data. And then we also launched a citizen space survey so that local people could prioritise the actions. So members, within your report, you'll see the engagement feedback is tabled in Table 1. And this feedback was presented to the October Strategic Growth Partnership, and they endorsed this as a means for us to undertake an editorial review of the actions and the content within the current plan, mainly just to review it, refresh it and amend it to make it up to modern in 2022. And we have done that. So the revised Strategic Growth Plan is therefore attached to Appendix 1 for your consideration. And if you'll allow me, I'll touch on some of the changes that are in this plan presented in front of you. We had received feedback throughout the Strategic Growth Plan that older people didn't feel that they had a role for themselves or didn't see themselves clearly in the plan. So we have moved to add an additional outcome, which is we have a caring society that supports people throughout their lives. And this reflects the feedback from the stakeholders and also aligns to the Programme for Government outcomes. It brings our outcomes to 9, which is the same as in the draft outcomes framework for the Programme for Government. You'll also see that we've prioritised actions. There's now 3 to 4 priority actions within each of the outcomes. We've included details on our innovation and regeneration projects within the city deal. Obviously, that's a new initiative that has been commenced since the plan was published in 2017 and needs to be in there. And we've also added some key policy priorities which have come to the fore since the original plan was published back in 2017, most notably the whole COVID recovery. We didn't forecast for that, and it happened since the plan was published, so we needed to include that to modernise it. So the narrative within the plan has moved on now to show that this is a time of progress and a time of recovery, as opposed to a time of opportunity and a time for a new story as it was in 2017. There also is a more focus on climate resilience. You'll know that we've done the climate emergency pledge and that needed to be factored into the plan. And we have aligned the outcomes to the Sustainable Development Goals. Much more focus in modern day now on the climate emergency, and the plan needed to reflect that. The data within the plan has been changed slightly. We've used it now to reflect progress on our indicators, our social, economic and environmental indicators, being mindful, members, that the census data is due to be released at the end of this calendar year. And obviously that will change the public policy landscape. So we didn't want to date the plan, putting in old census data, which will change at the end of this year. So the focus of the data in the plan is now moving towards how we're delivering since 2017 and closing the gap within Derry and Strabane and the rest of Northern Ireland, and the evidence that we have there in relation to our employment rate, our economic activity, our death rate, admission rate for alcohol and social dwelling completions. The challenges section obviously has been reviewed in light of what I've just said. The interdependencies and risks section has been updated to include the city deal. And the focus now in implementation has moved to delivery partnerships. We now have groups like the Rural Issues Group and also the Anti-Poverty Group, which are now featured within the plan. So the draft plan is now subject to a further 9-week public consultation, and we launched it there on just recently. And we have a draft consultation programme which is attached to Appendix 2 for your consideration. We're doing engagement workshops. It's online. People can fill in questionnaires. So, Chair, the recommendation before the committee today is to endorse the progress of the Strategic Growth Partnership in completing the statutory review of the plan in accordance with the legislation, and to note the ongoing consultation in relation to the revised content of the plan. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Councillor Farrell, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Rachel. Happy to propose this on behalf of the SDLP. Looking at the strategic growth plan that was sort of formulated 5 years ago, there's a lot of successes in there. We've got the city deal, heads of terms, which has been signed, and that's going to result in the UU innovation projects, riverfront regeneration, Strabane Town regeneration, the Walled City Signature Project, the DNA Museum. Medical school is opened, health sciences are coming. We've got the Grade A built at Ebrington. We've got the new tourist centre. We've got Greenway expansion right across the city and district. We've got the new fabulous Brook Park has been opened. And there's massive improvements made in the A60 Belfast. So the list is long and the list is impressive. So a lot has happened in the last 5 years that we as a council and we as a community should be proud of. But challenges do exist, and you probably know what I'm going to say here. For us, the key aspect of the strategic growth plan is the long-awaited McGee expansion. And we've debated this long and hard in this chamber, and we've had numerous discussions with the university and amongst ourselves, but very little seems to be happening. And I note that one of the key priorities in here is to enhance third level education and dairy, 10,000 at McGee, expansion at the Northwest Regional College. And that's still in there as a key action, as it should be. But my question is, has there been any discussion at the Strategic Growth Partnership about how we change hearts and minds within the Economy Department? Because ultimately, there's a new decade, new approach commitment. This is proposals will be produced for 10,000 at McGee, and the Economy Department will lead on it. Has there been anything discussed that will help deliver that? Because at the minute, it's in the new decade, new approach deal. It's just black and white on paper, and nobody is doing anything about it. And I would just note the comments of our Director of Business and Culture when he presented to the Northern Ireland Affairs Committee last week, where he says the North is exporting a university worth of talent every year. And he's right. We should be driving exports. We should be focusing on exports, but it should be goods and services, not people. It shouldn't be brothers and sisters and sons and daughters. So we need enhanced university provision in the North, and Derry is the place for it. So that's what we need to do. But how are we going to do it differently? Because at the minute, it's not working, and the minister responsible is not listening, and that's the truth. So is there anything else that the Strategic Growth Partnership has said about how we can do this differently? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Farrell. Next, I think is Speaker Alderman Centre. Go ahead, Hilary.
Thanks, Chair. And can I say thanks to Rachel for the update that she's given us and for the amount of work that she put into this and to everything that she does do. And it's very noticeable, the engagement that has been undertaken, the number of people really that are being engaged with. And I think in very many ways, this is really an update, as Rory has said, of all the positive things we have achieved as a city and district. We clearly still have ambitions, and I think we still need to strive to make sure those ambitions come into fruition. But I'm happy to second that proposal by Councillor Farrell that we endorse the plan before us. And again, thank you, Rachel, for all your hard work. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Hilary. Councillor Fleming. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Martin. And very much endorse the previous two speakers, both in terms of proposing and seconded, and certainly to thank Rachel for not only for the very detailed report, but for the work that goes on behind it. And as has been pointed out, I mean, there's a lot of positives over the last 4 or 5 years, despite the onslaught of the pandemic. But I mean, the gains are there, and the workings of the strategic growth partnership is there to be seen, and obviously, hopefully, that will continue. And as again has been pointed out, there's a number of challenges, some that weren't even there at the time in terms of Brexit, and certainly in terms of the pandemic. But certainly in terms of, and Rachel alluded to some of the indicators that has been shown in the report in terms of the improvement, and obviously then the number of gains, both city and district, and obviously as we go into the future. But obviously, again, has been alluded to, the McGee expansion, the outworkings of Brexit, the cost of living rises are all challenges that we face now, and we need to obviously, through the workings of the growth partnership, find solutions to each and all of them. We do welcome the changes as well in terms of the focus on actions and gaps rather than just reporting, and also be mindful of that there's not duplication across governance structures and bodies. And we also badly need a programme for government and 3-year budgets. So we need that particular crisis resolved as well, and to ensure that we maximise fully what we have in front of us in terms of our plans, and also welcome the massive amount of consultation with our partners and with citizens, and obviously would encourage people to take part in the consultation between now and April. I also would add that in terms of, we have achieved a lot of this, and certainly in our approach to historically low rate raises, and I think that that's a decision we took as a council, and I know some people have opposed it in recent times, but I think it's something that we need to have on our minds as we move forward to obviously bring about more beneficial change for all of our citizens. Thanking you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Paul. I don't have any other indicated speakers. I'm conscious being proposed and seconded. Rachel, is there any additional point of clarity you can bring in relation to some of Councillor Farrell's points?
Yeah, just to advise, at the October meeting, we had the senior team of the Ulster University come and did a very detailed presentation on what they were doing to expand numbers, and that was a very informative meeting. And what they have offered to do is to hold another in-depth workshop with members, and that just went out just before the meeting. So that's so you're welcome to attend that. So definitely we're challenging it through that way as well too.
And Chair, just to add comments with regard to some of the comments made by members. Firstly, very much welcome the positive comments in respect of what has changed since 2015. I think this is the first time I've ever seen in my time in local government, I've ever seen Are we all good? By this one, Chair, see if that makes any difference. It was just to firstly welcome the positive comments about the amount of progress since 2015. Certainly the first time that I've seen a strategic plan right across all the partners in the council area where we are able to evidence significant change, not just in terms of the projects, but in terms of the underlying indicators that we're trying to change, the economic indicators, the health indicators. Now, they're not changing fast enough, clearly, but they are starting to shift. And I think that's really important. Given that over the 5 years of the planning cycle, there are a number of massive issues that we hadn't foreseen. We had a breakdown in government for 3 years during that 5-year period. We had 2 years of a global pandemic, and we've had Brexit. So those are 3 massive factors that have impacted on all of the partners during that 5-year period. So it's testament to the strategic and partnership working that there has been such an amount of change. With regard to the single biggest issue, the absolute requirement for university expansion and the question asked, it does come back to the fundamental issue, which this council and this chamber has been really clear on over the years. Yes, some progress can be made within existing structures, resources, and within existing partnerships. Of course it can, and there's probably still a little bit more room for that, and we hope to hear the Vice-Chancellor say something about that and the numbers and the challenges around that when he provides that workshop. But we all know the single biggest issue beyond that, to get to our stated objective, is a change in policy with regard to the Mazen cap. This can't happen without a change in policy with regard to the Mazen cap. And the single biggest breakthrough with regard to that, as has been mentioned in this chamber time and time again, is for the first time in New Decade, New Approach, both governments and the Northern Ireland Executive committed to doing that. It's not just one institution or a council or a combination of that. It requires both governments working together to enable that to happen. So I think our members in this chamber are very clear on what's required. Any other diversion from that is taken as away from the fundamental key issue. Unless that Mazen cap is lifted, and unless it's lifted specifically for the geography of this region, we will not achieve that objective. There may be other hurdles to achieving that objective, which then need to be tackled, but that's the primary one. So I don't know if that helps answer the question, Councillor Farrell, but it brings us back to the original business case that was constructed by and funded by Derry City and Strabane District Council back in 2014, 2015, which focused on the need to lift Mazen, and the fact that that business case has still not been lifted and properly addressed by governments. It's not a matter for a government department, it's a matter for the totality of government to look at this policy issue. And we found that to be time and time again the case as we move forward.
Okay, thank you for that, Chief Executive, and elected members. That's been proposed and seconded, so happy enough to take that and to move on to item 10, which is the draft consultation response on the realignment of the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service district structures to those of local government authorities. Rachel.
Yep, thanks, Chair. Just the purpose of this report is to seek members' approval of a draft consultation response on the realignment of the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service district structures to those of local government authorities. As a means of background, on the 17th of January, the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service launched a consultation on the realignment of the district structures to local government boundaries. The proposed changes will realign the current district model, which has been in place since 1999. So, Chair, a draft response on behalf of the Council has been duly prepared and is attached to Appendix 2 for members' consideration. There's a number of points within that consultation response, just to say that we welcome the alignment and the co-terminosity with local government. We also recognise that the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service are fully engaged partners in the community planning process. We also seek reassurance that the realignment doesn't lead to the reduction of Crescent Link as a regional headquarter. We also reflect on the seek assurance that there will be no detrimental impact on the rest of the council area. We refer to a previous council motion in relation to the fire service provision in Castlederg. We seek for a full equality impact assessment and rural impact assessment. And also recognise how important the Fire and Rescue Service are in terms of linking with our emergency planning process, or PCSP, and our community resilience. So the draft response is there for members' consideration, and the responses to this consultation are invited until the end of March, the 28th of March. So subject to members' views, Chair, it is recommended that members approve the draft response attached to Appendix 2. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Rachel. Councillor McHugh, Rory, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Rachel for that report, and indeed to her for the work that went into the draft response. I think it's an excellent response and addresses the three questions very well. So it does. I'm particularly pleased to see within the fire brigades report there that I suppose I give it a cautious welcome, in the sense that when you see the terms realignment and reconfigured, those kind of words being used, we're all long enough in the tooth to know that sometimes that can be a code for cuts or whatever that's coming down the line. But I'm pleased to see that it's saying that it won't have any direct impact on frontline services or equipment. So particularly welcome that, although I suppose it remains to be seen then what impact it may have indirectly, but hopefully the report, as it says, states it's focusing on admin duties or a realignment of admin duties only. So that's particularly heartening. But just to comment on that, the draft response from Council, as I said, it's a very good response. And as Rachel said in her report there, I think the important aspect of the draft response is the fact that we're highlighting no diminution in terms of the primacy of the Crescent Link Station in terms of being the Western Area Command, and that there's emphasis on the motion which was passed by this council in terms of no reduction to services in Castledairg. So if that is the case going forward, then I would like to wholeheartedly endorse the report, and certainly from my own party's perspective, we're supportive of it, and I'm content to propose it. So thank you again, Rachel, and thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Rory, for that. Councillor Mooney and then Alderman Devaney. Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Rachel for the report and the Councillor McHugh's contribution. We will welcome the report as well, and the reply that has been drafted on our behalf. It appears to answer or rebut all the questions that have been asked anyway, and we're content as long as there's no diminution in the services here. It seems a practical, straightforward view. They align services with the council areas, but as it's been said by Councillor McHugh and by others, it is important that there is no dropping or disparity in the service levels, and especially, I suppose, to the rural areas as well. But apart from that, Chair, I'm happy to second it. Anyway, thank you.
Yes, thanks for that, Sean. Morris, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And first of all, can DP just put on record our thanks to Rachel and the team for a good piece of work here, and we have no problem in supporting the recommendation here. And I think the words used is no detrimental effect across our council area. And I know Councillor McHugh has mentioned about Castledairg, and we all know in the past there have been concerns around Castledairg. Look, we hope things stay the way they are, that there will be no reduction in services in Castledairg. But as far as our party is concerned, happy to support the recommendation, Chair, and thank Rachel and the team for all the work and the excellent response.
Okay, thanks for that, Morris. That's been proposed and seconded, so happy to take that as approved and move to item 11, which is the Transmission Development Plan for Northern Ireland 2021 to 2030 for Sony. Back to Rachel, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise members that SONI has opened its consultation on the Transmission Development Plan for Northern Ireland. So this SONI update and propose for approval a transmission development plan on an annual basis, and it outlines projects that are needed over the next 10 years in order to support the local economy and drive towards decarbonisation. So the key issues, Chair, they're proposing a number of essential upgrades to the Northern Ireland grid, and they have said that they need to strengthen the grid and the network to increase the amount of clean energy it can transport from the north and west and to urban centres in the east. There's a focus on the northwest and also in mid-Tyrone areas where Sony want to strengthen the grid to support economic development and facilitate decarbonisation of Northern Ireland's electricity supply. So the draft plan is attached at Appendix 1 for members' information and consideration. The consultation opened on the 18th of January and will close on the 15th of March. Chair, you may notice that I've read the document and I've itemed in table or point 3.4 the key elements of note within the planned developments for the north and west. They're tabulated specifically on pages 102 and 103 of Appendix 1, but I've highlighted them for members' information in section 3.4. Quite a lot of development in Derry and Strabane, and investment in Derry and Strabane sort of builds maybe on this similar presentation from Northern Ireland Water in the sense of what they're planning to do here. So members are asked to note the points above in terms of the investment for Derry and Strabane, and subject to any additional members' views, it is recommended that a response is submitted from the Council broadly based on the following points. That the Northwest is uniquely positioned as a rich source of energy to drive economic growth and has significant export potential. And we welcome the fact that they want to invest in the Northwest and recognise that renewable energy obviously is an important driver for green transformation of the city and district and will help us address our climate change pledge. It also outlines how we need renewable energy to assist with our electricity grid development and meet the future demand for the rollout of electrical vehicles and also heat pump technology. Also in the draft response, we're suggesting that we say that Sony use this and particularly that we have concerns regarding rising living costs and energy prices and the global drivers on energy provision, and if there's anything that they can do to mitigate the risks associated with that for the Council, and that any development needs are carefully planned in accordance with the rights of nature, and the full investment needs to be undertaken with a social value and community wealth building approach. So just a couple of points that we're suggesting putting in a consultation response within the deadline. So, Chair, subject to any additional views from members, it's recommended that a corporate consultation response is prepared on the draft plan for Northern Ireland based on the points that I've put out in section 3.5 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Rachel. Councillor Heaney, go ahead, Conor.
Okay, thanks, Chair, and thanks to Rachel for that. And I'm content to propose the response on behalf of our party. I think it does cover all the key elements that we want to see. And I welcome the focus in Sony's plans on the Northwest. That's good to see, and is all to the good in terms of what we need for our wider requirements and the discussion earlier. Can I just ask a question, and maybe it's an unfair question of Rachel, so if she doesn't have the answer, that's fair enough, but I'm just wondering, is there any update on the North-South Interconnector in relation to these plans, where it's currently at, and maybe moving forward? So I don't know if she could help there.
Do you want to take that now, Rachel, or?
I know it is referenced, actually, when I was reading the consultation document, it is referenced in that document. It's quite a big document, I know, but there is an update within that consultation document that, for your information, but I'm not sure I'm best placed to advise on it.
Sure, we could contact Sony specifically and ask them for a specific update and pass to all members if you're content.
Yep, I think that might be useful, yeah. Happy enough with that, Conor, yeah?
Yeah, that's great, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mooney, Sean.
Chair, I'll just second that proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't have any other indicated speakers. It's been proposed and seconded, but just to thank Rachel for that report, but also the other two reports that she's just delivered in terms of consultations that are of huge significance to our council district, and the deadlines for responses are all quite jammed together. So a lot of work that's really important. So thanks, Rachel, for all of that. Members, moving on to the next item, which is item 12, which is social media during the pre-election period. I'm going to hand over to, not sure who that is, who's taking it, which officer?
It's me.
Yep, go ahead, Adele, thanks.
Good afternoon, members. The purpose of the report before you today is to seek your approval for Council to comply with NILGA's policy and communication guidance. Note that's relating to the pre-election period of heightened political sensitivity relating to Council's corporate social media channels. Members, you'll be aware that our social media channels is one of the many communication tools that we use to get information out to the public relating to Council services, initiative and events. NILGA have advised councils that they need to adopt good practice in relation to communications activities in the run-up to the May elections. And in an effort to adhere to this guidance and to show best practice, we are recommending today that we review our social media content over this period with a view to not posting details of notices of motions passed by council or committees or any formal proposals during this period. What we will do, however, we will continue to post advance notice of each committee and council meeting with a link to the agenda and also a link to the YouTube channels where people can view the meetings online. All other press information will be issued out post-committee. We'll also post those. We're also proposing that in the week of the period of that Purdah period commencing on the 26th of March, that we will tweet a link out with the NILGA report explaining that what we were doing and that we will be adhering to this guidance only for a temporary period. As per guidance, members, we will also monitor the pages to ensure that there's no major social media campaigns planned during this period. And keeping with the guidance, we will continue to profile the Mayor as a first citizen and ensure that any post is not of a political nature. We'll continue to issue press releases and statements about key decisions of Council and of public information. And also we will ensure not to, facilitate that individual councillors or any groups of councillors are included in this. Members, today the report, we're seeking your approval to note the report and to approve the recommendation that we would adhere to these NILGA guidance from the 28th of March until after the May elections. And members, a copy of the NILGA report and the guidance report is attached for your information. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Adele, for that. I think the Chief Executive just wants to add a few lines. I know it's been proposed in the chat box and seconded already. I appreciate that, John.
No, thanks, Chair. It's just to come in to again thank Adele and her team for all of the work that goes on in promoting the business of Council, and just to remind members that we are actually the only council who actually puts out social media information in relation to every advance notice of motion that's received and the outcome of it in the chamber. Sometimes, as you know, members, very, very late in the evening. In terms of what has been decided by Council. So I think the initiative that has been taken by the comms team in rolling out this piece of work has definitely assisted in promoting the decision making within the Council chamber and has been particularly helpful during the COVID period. So it's just to remind members that this is a unique initiative that we're proposing will be suspended during that short period and isn't something that's generally rolled out across the other 11 councils.
Okay, thanks for that, John. And just to concur with your comments in relation to Dale and the team and the work that they do, not just in relation to tweeting out and messaging out on social media during fall council, but also during the pandemic as well. It was a go-to point for members of the public to keep themselves up to date with what was available and how to keep themselves safe. And I know that was appreciated by citizens right across, not just our council area, but across a wider field as well. It's been proposed and seconded in the chat box, Alderman Devaney and Councillor Duffy, so happy to take that as approved and to move on then to item 13, which I think Ellen has taken.
Through you, Chair, this report aims to appraise elected members of the opportunities available to engage with the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations and to seek endorsement of the approach. The report obviously highlights that the Queen will become the first British monarch to celebrate a Platinum Jubilee, and there is a year-long celebration of that achievement. It also highlights that the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities has issued correspondence to all local authorities in the UK, identifying opportunities to engage with the Jubilee, and they're set out in paragraph 2.2. The DCMS department has also launched a specific website with resources to help facilitate people engaging in the programme and highlighting where things are happening and what is relevant to them. Also, I would highlight to you that the council has through through its ENR committee endorsed participation in the Queen's Green Canopy Initiative, which also forms part of that regional initiative and is a unique UK-wide training tree planting project. And it can also be taken forward, as I say, the report notes, by individual schools and groups, but certainly the council's participating. And further to that as well, at the meeting of council held in January, a motion was passed, which was highlighted that council officers consider appropriate mechanisms for the city and district to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in early June for those who wish to celebrate this momentous occasion. Key issues are identified that there was a funding pot of 22 million identified, but that this pot is currently closed, that there aren't available funding streams at the present time in council, and that I spoke as well with the funding manager for the community fund, and they have advised us that any groups here locally wishing to apply for funding for Jubilee projects are more than welcome to apply to the Awards for All programme, which gives individual initiatives either, a range of funding between 300 and 10,000. It's also noted the funding manager said that programme is open for 12 months and anybody wishing again to take forward an initiative outside the June period may also apply to the scheme. It's noted as well that there is a commitment to turn around items as fast as possible, and that the funding turnaround time has been reduced from 12, where possible, to 8 weeks. And obviously they are encouraging applications as soon as possible, but certainly no later than April. Funding manager also identified, again for people's references, dedicated officers who are willing to assist groups and organisations involved. Specifically in terms of, as I say, supporting these initiatives, council officers will celebrate or will actually signpost community groups to the relevant guidance and personnel, will facilitate road closures in line with our normal procedures where a community wishes to sort of celebrate a wider event, and also by providing assistance for any planned events via the Safety Advisory Group. Obviously, it is encouraged that where groups are intending to host celebratory events, that they seek advice as soon as possible and guidance. The recommendation in front of members today is note the contents of the risk report and endorse the proposed report, endorse the proposed approach. Thank you, members.
Thank you for that, Ellen. Alderman McClintock, go ahead, Hilary.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ellen, for the report, even though I'll say that we're very disappointed in it. I think really the report is an exercise in signposting groups to other funders. I think it does nothing to help the groups in our council area who were hoping. So often we can pull a little bit of money out of the hat to offer small grant aids. And I think many of the groups, small groups that we have been talking to, would have loved the opportunity to have applied for a small amount of money to organise an event around that weekend at the beginning of June. So I think some councils have been obviously more proactive than others and been able to offer to people. And we have always prided ourselves on being a progressive council, so it is a little bit disappointing that as a council we're not able to offer anything directly to those groups, and we absolutely appreciate that the occasion of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee is not something that everybody wants to celebrate, but yet a sizable number of our constituents do wish to do so, from all walks of life and from all sections of the community. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alderman McClintock. Councillor Donnelly. Gary.
Chair.
Chair, look, as a Republican, I'm against all monarchies, but as an Irish Republican, I'm particularly against the British monarchy, and it's my view, and I've said this at the full council. This is the head of an establishment that has caused so much death and destruction in this country, and I don't think that any self-respecting socialist or Republican could endorse this report. This is an organisation, she's representative of an organisation that has done so much damage and hurt and continues to violate Irish sovereignty. So I just want to reiterate my position and put on record that I refuse to endorse this report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Donnelly, any other indicated speakers in relation to this item? Councillor Farrell, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. It's not my nature to attend a Queen's Jubilee, but thousands of people across the city and district would be keen to do that. I'm not a fan of the monarchy. I'm not a royalist, but I'm not going to vote in any way to prevent somebody who wants to attend a Queen's Jubilee attending it. Simple as that. So, Holly, did you propose that? Oh, right. I'll end my remarks there.
Okay, folks, I'm looking to see if there are any other indicated speakers in relation to this. I'm conscious it will need to be proposed and seconded. And if no proposal or seconder comes forward, then we just treat it as not approved. It's treated as noted. Okay, members. Thank you. That moves us on to the next item, which is item 15, membership of organisations and associations.
Item 14. 14. There is through you, Chair. Yes, this particular report, item 14, aims to update members on progress on the notice of on the motion regarding employment and equality monitoring, which is minute reference C46221, and again to seek endorsement of the report of the approach. So full details of the motion itself are set out in Appendix 1, and specifically it refers to the way employment monitoring takes place across the council and the region as a whole, and that it was failing to reflect the increasingly diverse population of our communities. So in terms of taking it forward and in line with what was set out in the motion, Council has written to the Northern Ireland Executive again to advise of the motion passed by Council, and we've followed up with a number of reminders where response has not been received. Additionally, officers have met with the Equality Commission and also have now met with the consultants commissioned by the Equality Commission, who are carrying out work on employment monitoring. We've also carried out some initial research on handling sensitive data, because obviously any information relating to the characteristics of an individual are classified as sensitive data. We've researched recommended approaches to better collaboration or better collation of demographic information, and specifically, as I say, the report that has been, the information that has been carried out, or the research has been carried out by the Office of National Statistics. We're also looking as well in terms of functionality of our existing software in terms of monitoring details. The key issues there are identified under section 3 as being the fact that the legislation doesn't require us to do specific detailed monitoring outside of a fair employment and treatment order, which looks at gender and religion. We're not, the Equality Commission themselves have highlighted that they have no specific powers to change the legislation in this regard, and also that we're reflecting good practice at the minute. Again, as I say, in terms of the Office of National Statistics, this section presents their suggested way forward. They're also using that rollout for the censuses going forward. In terms of the the progress to date, and considering the information we've already collated, officers have identified a number of further actions which are identified at section 3.7. Members are therefore asked, in terms of this report, that they note progress to date and endorse their approach detailed in the report. Thank you, members.
Yes, thanks for that, Ellen. Apologies, I was jumping ahead to 15 before we got to 14. In the chat box, Councillor Sinai Barr on item 14. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of this committee, but I would like to make a few comments on this item. Let me begin by thanking Council officials for their very detailed and comprehensive report. It is obvious that a great deal of effort has gone into this update. And you may remember that I tabled that motion calling on Council to review its own workplace monitoring policies. And this was based on my own personal experiences. To update this reflecting a broader range of characteristics. That was the main purpose of the motion. I would like to draw Council attention to the Equality Act 2010. This was a very wide-ranging statute, and it's essentially the cornerstone of equality legislation today. It mandated all public authorities in Great Britain, including local council, to commence the monitoring of employment and services on the grounds of age, disability, sexual orientation, religion, and race, all being protected characteristics. Monitoring has been conducted in local councils in England, Scotland, and Wales since 2012. And as this is the only region that does not have monitoring. And a recent report, I'm not sure if officials may know this, a recent report commissioned by the Executive Office advocated for ethnic monitoring to be introduced here in the North. And we know that the Executive Office has established an interdepartmental working group composed of representatives from NISRA and all 9 government departments to carry out the recommendation in the report. So it seems more likely that some sort of monitoring by ethnicity and country of birth will eventually become mandatory for public authorities across the North. And this council should be preparing for changes that have been introduced in other jurisdictions. Rather than reinvent the wheel, I would suggest that council seek advice and guidance on implementation from councils across the waters which have already been engaged in this work before. And I would suggest a colleague to propose that council bring a further paper highlighting what options are available for Derry City and Strabane District Council to expand the monitoring of staff in line with current best practice in Great Britain. So I'm going to post a proposal there on the chat box.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Sinai Barr. I'll just wait for an officer maybe to put that up on the large screen if possible for members here in the chamber to see. So just bear with us a moment to get that up on the screen.
Chair, clarification on something. Is it possible for a non-member of the committee to make a proposal?
No, it's not, but I think Lillian indicated that she's going to ask a colleague to propose it, but I'll take that when it's on the screen and I'll ask for a second in due course. So as Neil is putting that up on the screen, I see in the chat box, Alderman McCready has just given his apologies for being late, but he would like to be marked at present, so we can add Councillor McCready to the attendees. Okay, so thanks, Councillor Sinai Barr, for speaking to that item. And then, as you indicated, you're not a member of the committee, so I'm going to have to call for a proposer for it. I see Councillor Farrell with his hand up. Go ahead, Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to formally propose Councillor Sinai Barr's proposal. But I've got one question. How does that align with 3.7, the further action of investigate options and implications for enhancing the analysis and reporting of HR data? So is that something we're doing already?
Before you come in, Ellen, and sorry, I need a seconder just for the record. Councillor Mooney. Okay, so that's been proposed and seconded. Ellen, do you have a response to Councillor Farrell?
Yes, through you, Chair. I mean, this is very much a work in progress. I was keen to highlight that, as I say, we are advancing it with the Equality Commission and obviously participating in that research if members are happy with that today. But we certainly are still investigating the options in terms of looking at the analysis of that. And indeed, we're actually looking at, we have quite an advanced monitoring form which includes all of the Section 75 details, but it's how we're collating and analysing that information. We are certainly looking to develop our approaches, and indeed, in terms of best practice, we're still looking at that to enhance the outcomes of this. So, I mean, it is still a piece of work. It's ongoing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for those points of clarification, Ellen. Members happy to take any additional comments that people may have in relation to the proposal. And if no other speaker comes forward, I'll take that as that proposal has been passed. Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Sinai Barr. Councillor Farrell, do you want to come in again?
And I'll propose the actual item.
Okay, thanks for that. We've already a seconder for the actual item as well. Councillor Mooney again. Okay, thank you, members, for that. Ellen, happy to move on to the next item. Thank you.
Yes, through you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek members' approval in relation to the continued membership of a number of organisations or association. And as indicated in the report there, the Council currently is a member and subscribes to a range of organisations that support local government or council-endorsed activities. In many cases, elected members take part in activities and or play a role in the governance of these bodies. Accordingly, we have identified in the report a number of those organisations for which they're indicative and including indicative costs for membership or continued membership, which is funded through the corporate budget. It's noted that, as I say, if members require any further information in any of these particular organisations in their contribution towards Council, we're happy to bring it forward. But that the recommendation in front of members today is that, subject to your comments, the membership of those listed organisations are maintained for 2022/23. Thank you, members.
Okay, thanks for that, Ellen. I suppose I just need to make a declaration of interest. I'm a member of APSI on behalf of the Council. So just record that. Any members wishing to speak to this item or to propose it?
Proposed, Honourable Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Morris, and seconded by Councillor Boyle here in the chamber. Thank you. Okay, members, that moves us on to the items that are open for information. So unless people have any indication that they wish to speak to items 16, 17, 18 or 19, I see Councillor Duffy in the chat box. Item 17. Go ahead, Sandra.
Thanks, Chair, and I'll be quite brief. It's just in relation to the Northwest Regional Strategic Body. I made a proposal a number of months ago, John, in relation to a cross-party, cross-border delegation meeting with the Minister, Imminent, in relation to the airport. I actually think I may have mentioned it in this committee before as well. I'm just looking for an update on where that that proposal has gone. Has it gone to Imminent? Has there been a response? And if not, can this committee follow up on it? Because I think that, well, don't need to tell people on this committee the importance of the airport in terms of our strategic objectives and our strategic plan. So I would just like to follow up on that item if possible. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Sandra. Rachel, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Duffy. Yes, just to confirm that following that meeting and the meeting previous, there was correspondence issued seeking to meet. And I'm afraid that we haven't received a response back yet, but the Northwest Regional Development Group are meeting again next Friday. So perhaps maybe we can discuss it further then, given that obviously that's on the agenda as well too.
Yeah, Sharon, just augmenting what Rachel has said. The meeting next Friday has a presentation into it on the business case that has been submitted to government in respect of the airport. So there will be another opportunity for members to propose action flowing from that presentation.
Okay, thanks for that. Happy enough with that, Councillor Duffy?
Yes, thank you, John, and thank you, Rachel. I'm on the Northwest Regional Development Group, so I will look forward to that meeting. So thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I see Alderman Hussey has his hand up on the screen. Go ahead, Derek.
No, I know Sandra will bring that forward, but as Vice Chair of the Northwest Regional Development Group, I'll ensure that matter comes through, but I'm sure Sandra will be there before me anyway. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Alderman Hussey. No other indicated speakers for the matters that are in open business, so can I have a proposer and seconder please to go into confidential?
Proposed, Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, and Councillor Farrell here in the chamber, seconded. So members, just bear with me until IT confirm that we're put into confidential.